and spend out of what we have provided for them. The positioning and relationship with the preceding phrase. Just as the salat are the pillar of religion and uphold religion, so zakat is the bridge of Islam and the means by which its people assist one another. There are certain conditions making almsgiving acceptable and not misplaced. One should not be wasteful, go to excess, which is reprehensible. One should not take from one person and give to another, but should give out of one's own property. One should not give in the hope of gain. One should not fear poverty. Almsgiving should not be restricted to property. Knowledge, ideas, and actions may also be given. The recipient of almsgiving should not spend it on frivolities, but on necessities and basic needs. The Qur'an preferred, and spent out of what we have provided for them, to they give alms, or they give the alms tax, and so on, in order to make the following points and infer these conditions. With, out of, it indicates that wastefulness in the giving of almsgiving should be avoided. By putting out of what, first, it infers that it should be given out of the donor's property. And by we have provided, it disallows it being a favor, that is, it is Allah who is the giver and you are merely the means. And by the we, it alludes to the meaning of the hadith, never fear scarcity from the Lord of the Divine Throne. And because rizq, the noun sustenance derived from the verbal root, here is absolute and not specific, it infers that almsgiving includes the giving of knowledge, ideas, and other things. And by spend, it infers the condition that the recipient should spend the alms on his livelihood and essential needs. It is stated by a sound hadith, zakat is the bridge of Islam. That is, zakat is a bridge. The Muslim helps his brother Muslim to pass over it. For it is the means enjoined by religion whereby people may assist one another. Indeed, it is a highway in the ordering of human society and a link or artery by which the substance of life may flow between its members. Indeed, it is the antidote to the very real poisons impeding human progress. Yes, there is vast wisdom in the obligation of zakat and prohibition of usury and interest, and love the benefits and extensive mercy. For if you take a historical look at the page of the world and study the evils of human society, you will see that the underlying reasons for all revolutions and corruption and the source of immorality are only two things. The first, once I am full, what is it to me if others die of hunger? The second, you work so that I can eat, and you toil so that I can rest. As for the cruel, rapacious, while first saying it has shaken the world of humanity and brought it to the brink of ruin, it is only zakat that will cut it at the root. While the tyrannical, greedy, perverted second saying has imperiled human progress, taking it tottering to the verge of the conflagration of anarchy. And the only way to eradicate it, the only remedy for it, is the prohibition of usury and interest. So reflect on this. Consider this. The order of society is dependent on there being no vacuum between the classes of people. The upper classes should not grow distant from the lower classes, nor the rich from the poor, to the extent that the lines of communication are broken between them. But because the obligatory payments of zakat and the prohibition of usury and interest have been neglected, a yawning gap has opened up between the classes, and the upper classes have grown so distant from the lower classes that no links between them remain. It is because of this that instead of respect, obedience, and love ascending from the lower classes to the upper classes, shouts of revelation arise, and shrieks of envy and cries of hatred and revenge. Similarly, instead of kindness, generosity, and favors descending from the upper to the lower classes, the fires of tyranny and oppression and volleys of insult rain down on them. Alas, while the qualities of the elite should be the cause of modesty and compassion, unfortunately they give rise to pride and arrogance. And while the powerlessness and poverty of the poor necessitate kindness and benevolence, they lead to slavery and degradation. If you want a witness for what I say, take a look at the civilized world. There you will find as many witnesses as you could wish for. The only means of reconciliation between the classes which will bring them closer together is the payment of zakat, one of the pillars of Islam and an elevated, far-reaching rule in the administration of society. Verse 4. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. And who believe in that which is revealed to you, and that which was revealed before you, and have certain belief in the hereafter. Consider this. The Qur'an has let its composition flow. That is to say, in most verses similar to this one, it has not specified any aspect of the phrases and sentences by placing a sign in them. This is for a subtle reason, and this reason is the source of its conciseness, which in turn is the source of its miraculousness. The reason is this. Eloquence consists of speaking in conformity with the demands of any situation. The Qur'an addresses people belonging to different classes in different centuries. So, taking all these classes and centuries into consideration so that all those different types of people may receive their share, it makes omissions in many places in order to make general what it says and apportion it out, and speaks in absolute terms so as to make it comprehensive and distribute it. Moreover, it leaves the composition free in many places to multiply its facets and to increase the possibilities agreeable to eloquence and acceptable to the sciences of Arabic. Thus, all minds receive the Qur'an's effusions to the extent they can appreciate them. Consider this carefully. Now, the positioning of this verse in relation to the previous one. Here, it is being specific after being general to proclaim over the heads of witnesses the distinction of those people of the book who believe, and to silence those of them who hold back from it, and to take those like Abdullah ibn Salam by the hand so as to encourage others to follow his example. Moreover, it states unequivocally that there are two sorts of God-fearing people, thus stating openly that the Qur'an's guidance embraces all peoples, and inferring that Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, was sent as messenger to all nations without exception. Also, by elucidating the pillars of belief contained in the shell of who believe in the unseen, it supplies details after its previous succinct statements, for it makes explicit mention of the revealed books and resurrection of the dead, an implicit reference to the prophets and angels. The Qur'an did not opt for conciseness by saying something like, the believers in the Qur'an. Rather, in order to start the meaning with subtleties and decorate its appendices with fine points, it preferred, and who believe in that which is revealed to you. For in who is a sign that the attribute of belief is what is intended, and that a person's other attributes are dependent on it and concealed beneath it. In the use of the imperfect tense for they believe, instead of the believers, the active participle which infers something being fixed and unchanging is an indication that belief is constantly renewed on the repeated coming of revelation. Then, with the vagueness of what It indicates that abbreviated belief is sufficient, and that belief includes exoteric revelation like the Qur'an and esoteric revelation like Hadith. Concerning revealed in regard to its matter, it indicates that belief in the Qur'an is belief in its revelation by Allah, the Most High. Likewise, it means belief in Allah is belief in Allah's existence, and belief in the hereafter is belief in the coming of the hereafter. The use of the perfect tense, although the revelation had not yet been completed, is an indication that its completion was as certain as that which had been revealed. Moreover, they believe being in the imperfect tense infers the future, thus compensating for the deficiency inferred by the use of the perfect. Because the Qur'an was revealed in this way, that is, by degrees, you see in its styles that the past very often swallows the future, and the imperfect tense dons the attire of the perfect. The eloquence of this is very subtle. If a person hears something referred to in the past, although it has not yet occurred, it arouses his mind, and he is alerted to the fact that he is not alone, but behind him are row upon row at various distances, as though the centuries and their peoples are sitting in tiers rising up behind him. This makes him aware that the address and call directed towards him is being heard by all of them according to its value. Yes, it is a divine address from which all the rows of men in all the centuries receive their share. Thus, the past is real for most people most of the time, while for a few a little of the time it is figurative. So, to take the majority into consideration serves better the purposes of eloquence. And in the use of to you rather than on you is a sign that the divine messengership was a duty with which the Prophet, upon whom be blessings and peace, was charged, that he undertook voluntarily. Also, on the one hand, it indicates his loftiness, since Gabriel served him by presenting the Qur'an to him for on hints of compulsion, and that the means of revelation was higher. While, on the other, the use of the second person to you rather than the third person to Muhammad implies that Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, was only an addressee, and that the speech is Allah's word. Moreover, in meaning, the direct address of the vocative confirms and illustrates the meaning of that which is sent down or revealed, and this is the revelation, and the revelation is the Qur'an, which is a divine address to the Prophet, the character of which is to permeate all these points. And this reveals his share of this characteristic. Thus, it becomes clear by reason of its encompassing all these subtle points that this passage is of the utmost conciseness. And that which was revealed before you. Consider this. The purpose of descriptions like this is to arouse eagerness, and this implies certain new injunctions. Believe in such and such, and make no distinction between the prophets. The phrase's positioning and its ties with what precedes it comprise four subtle points. Firstly, the argument from what is adduced to the evidence. It is like this: O man, if you believe in the Qur'an, believe also in the previous scriptures, for the Qur'an confirms their veracity and testifies to them. This is indicated by a confirmation of what went before. Secondly, the argument from the evidence to what is adduced like this: O people of the book, if you believe in the past prophets and scriptures, you should also believe in the Qur'an and Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, for the scriptures gave the good news of his coming. Moreover, confirmation of them and their revelation and evidences of the messengers' prophethoods are found in reality and in spirit more perfectly in the Qur'an and more clearly in Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace. Thus, According to this excellent reasoning, the Qur'an is the word of Allah, and Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, is his messenger. Thirdly, and this is a sign that the outcome of the Qur'an, that is, Islam, which emerged from it in the era of bliss, is like a tree whose origin is fastened in the depths of the past. Its spreading roots are fed from the water sources of that time, yielding life and strength. And with its trunk in the skies of the future, its spreading branches are laden with fruit. That is to say, Islam embraces the past and the future. Fourthly, and this is a sign that it is urging the people of the book to believe in Islam, for it is making it appear familiar to them and easy. It is as though the Qur'an is saying, O people of the book, you should not experience any difficulty in entering this new way, for you are not casting away your outer shell altogether, but only completing your beliefs and building on the fundamentals you already possess. For the Qur'an does not bring any new fundamentals or principal beliefs. It modifies and perfects existent ones, and it combines in itself the virtues of all the previous books and the essentials of all the previous laws. It only establishes new ordinances in secondary matters, which are subject to change due to differences in time and place. For just as with the change of seasons, food and dress, and many other things are changed, so too the stages of a person's life warrant changes in the manner of their education and upbringing. Similarly, as necessitated by wisdom and need, religious ordinances concerning secondary matters change in accordance with the stages of mankind's development. For very many of these are beneficial at one time, yet harmful at another, and very many medicines were efficacious in mankind's infancy, yet ceased being remedies in its youth. This is the reason the Qur'an abrogated some of its secondary pronouncements. That is, it decreed that their time had finished, and that the term had come for other decrees. The words before you also indicate a number of subtle points. Consider this. There is no word of revelation that is disdainful of its place, or is not content with it, or thinks that another place would be better. No, there is no word of revelation, but it is like an embossed pearl, held firmly in its setting by the bonds of the relationships between it and its brothers. If you wish, study before you will see how the subtleties fly out from every side of the verse and alight on this unique phrase. The verse of which before you is a part deals with the question of prophethood and the 5 aims it comprises. The phrase has absorbed these aims and being colored by them. Signifying 5 subtle points, it exudes the 5 aims which are reflected from these relationships. The aims included in prophethood are these. Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, is a prophet. He is the most perfect of the prophets. He is the seal of the prophets. He was sent to all peoples. His Sharia abrogated all preceding ones and contains their virtues. The manner, the first aim, is reflected in the phrase. The words before you are used only when ways are united and the road is one, as though the phrase is suggesting that by comparison all the proofs of the previous prophets and of the veracity of their scriptures form a decisive proof of the prophethood of Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, and the revelation of his book. For all the causes and reasons confirming their prophethoods prove his prophethood more explicitly and more powerfully. It is as though all their miracles form a single miracle proving his veracity. The way in which the second aim, the perfection of Muhammad's, upon whom be blessings and peace, prophethood, is reflected in the phrase before you. In view of the facts that it is the custom for the king to appear before the people at the end of a ceremony and in accordance with the law of human progress, a later teacher is better than an earlier one, and generally those who come later are more proficient than those who preceded them. Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, was the sovereign of the prophets and the best and most perfect of them, just as the Qur'an is more comprehensive and universal than their scriptures. The way the phrase "be for you" absorbs the third aim, which is Muhammad's being the seal of the prophets. In accordance with the rule, if one is multiplied, it goes to infinity, stopping nowhere, but if a multiplicity of things are united, they acquire stability and come to a health, and as is inferred by the opposite idea, "before you" hints that there will be no prophets after you, and that Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, is the seal of the prophets. The way the phrase "before you" is colored by the fourth aim, the universality of his mission. It expresses this meaning: you are their successor, and they are all your predecessors. Hence, according to the rule, the successor shoulders the duties of his predecessor and takes his seat. All of them were your predecessors, and you are their deputy and the messenger to all peoples. Yes, indeed, it could only be thus, for the innate disposition of things demands it, and wisdom requires it. Before the era of bliss, all the nations of the world of humanity were extremely distant from one another and hostile to each other, both physically and emotionally, and by instinct and upbringing. A single sort of education was insufficient for them, and all could not be drawn to a single cause. Then, when humanity was awakened in the era of bliss, and subsequently, and people felt a desire to come together due to the exchange of ideas and swapping of characters and the intermingling of peoples, and some of them investigating the conditions of others, and time was turned up by the many means of communication and transportation, then the globe of the earth became like a single country, or a province, or a town, and the people of the world came together, and then a single mission, a single prophethood was sufficient for all of them. The way the phrase intimates the fifth aim, since the "from" of "before you" infers a beginning, it infers to, which indicates the end. That is, prophethood came to an end with your coming, for your Sharia is sufficient. This infers that his Sharia abrogated all previous ones, signaling their end, and through its sufficiency included them all. The evidence that, from the point of view of eloquence, this phrase has absorbed these subtle points is that the five aims resemble a river flowing beneath these verses. One of them gushes out completely in one verse, then another flows forth in another, and another is manifested entirely in a torrent in yet another. Even the least trickle on the surface indicates that the veins of this phrase touch it. Moreover, the above meanings sprout forth in many different verses. And have certain belief in the hereafter. Consider this. This phrase refers to the fourth of the four well-known aims of the Qur'an, the resurrection of the dead. I have deduced 10 proofs of it from the Qur'an's composition and have set them out in another book. It will be useful to summarize them here. They are as follows. The resurrection of the dead is a reality, for there is perfect, intentional order in the universe. There is total wisdom in creation. There is nothing futile in the world. There is no waste in creation. This testimony is vouched for by the inductive reasoning of all the sciences, each of which is a faithful witness to the order in its field of study. Also, there being repeated resurrections in most things, such as the days and the years and so on, testifies to the resurrection of the dead. Man's innate disposition also points to it. It is indicated too by his infinite hopes and desires. The all-wise Maker's mercy also alludes to the resurrection, while the tearful tone of Allah's Messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, states it explicitly. And the inimitable Qur'an testifies to it with such verses as, seeing that He has created you in successive stages, and nor is your sustainer ever unjust to His servants. These 10 genuine proofs are keys to eternal happiness and to the doors of paradise. An explanation of the first proof. If the universe did not result in everlasting happiness, the order in it, which its maker has laid down with the greatest skill and precision, leaving minds in amazement, would be a flimsy, deceptive form, and all non-material matters and connections and relationships and links in the order would go for nothing. The order is order only because it leads to eternal happiness. That is, the fine points and non-material aspects of the order only sprout in the next world. Otherwise, all those non-material aspects would be extinguished, all the bonds be broken, all the relationships severed, and the order would cease to be. But the power inherent in the order declares in a resounding voice that it would not let it be broken and dissolved. Second proof. The faultless wisdom in the universe, which is the exemplification of pure eternal providence and consists of following uses and instances of wisdom in all the realms of beings, indeed in every part of each, as is testified to by the sciences, gives the glad tidings of eternal happiness. We would otherwise have to deny these purposes and benefits, the certainty of which compels us to acknowledge them. For then the benefits would not be benefits, and the wisdom would not be wisdom, and the uses would not be useful. And this is pure sophistry. The third proof, which expounds the second. Science testifies also that the Maker chooses the shortest path in everything, and the closest sight, and the lightest and most beautiful form. This indicates the absence of futility, and this suggests that the Maker is truly serious, and this could only be with the coming of eternal happiness. Otherwise, existence would descend to the level of absolute non-existence, and everything would be transformed into pure futility. Glory be unto you. You did not create this in vain. The fourth proof, which elucidates the third. The sciences show that there is no waste in creation. If your mind is incapable of perceiving the instances of wisdom in the macrocosm, that is, the world, scrutinize the microcosm, which is man, for the science of anatomy has described and proved them. In the human body are approximately 600 bones, each of which has a particular function. And there are 6,000 veins and arteries for the circulation of the blood, each with its own use. And there are 24,000 pores and ducts in the cells. And in each cell function the 5 powers of attraction, repulsion, holding, forming, and reproduction, which all have their own purposes. If the microcosm is thus, would the macrocosm be defective in comparison? If there is this absence of waste in the body, which has no importance compared with its essence, is it conceivable that the spirit would be neglected, or that spiritual matters and hopes and ideas, which are the works of the spirit, would be wasted? If it were not for eternal happiness, all spiritual matters would shrivel up and be wasted. For God's sake, is it reasonably possible that you should have a jewel worth the world, and look after its shell in case, not even letting it become dusty, then take it and smash it to smithereens and destroy all trace of it? Absolutely not. You only look after the case for what it contains. Furthermore, if a person's sound constitution and healthy members and faculties give you to understand that he will continue to live and develop, do not the constant reality permeating the spirit of the universe, and the total force indicating the continued existence of its order, and the perfection causing the evolution of its overall system all show you that eternal happiness will arrive through the door of bodily resurrection, because it is only resurrection that saves the order from disturbance and is the means of its evolution, and for the unfolding of that perpetual force,